All right, Dr. Trish Leigh, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to speak to you today. And let's talk pornography.
Let's.
Yeah.
I know. Yep. I know.
Yeah.
When around my house in my office, it's always like, my porn videos, my porn channel. You know what I mean? I like that can
That's pretty funny.
be misunderstood, but let's talk porn for sure. I'm
Yeah.
glad to
First,
be here.
I'm
Hmm.
so glad to have you, honestly. I mean, I first found you through the Jubilee
Hmm.
conversation that you've had. And firstly, I just have to say, it was such an unfair conversation because you were actually a scientist. And the other people that, like, what can people argue with you on? It's like you just have the research.
Well, honestly, I felt a lot of pressure. I prepared for that a lot, and I generally don't like prepare for anything. Not to, I can speak from my heart and my mind.
Mhm.
But I'm like, I'm the only person who like can't be rage baited, basically. Like
Mhm.
my whole goal was to be as peaceful as possible, try to make points, try to help people see the relevance, try to make it easy to understand, without being overly sciency, like not being a know-it-all, and I felt like, at least when I walked away, I haven't watched it. I don't really ever watch anything that I record, but I felt good about it when I walked away. Like I nailed the angle of trying to stay in that space at least. But
Mhm.
yeah, I thought it was interesting because you don't know who the cast is. Like when I agreed to
Right.
go, I envisioned it much differently with the people that were on my side. Do you know what I mean? But
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I will have to keep myself together. Not that I'm ever rage baited, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
is porn good or bad? Like, what does the science say on this? And I know it's kind of like a broad question, but I want to give you the floor to really, take it where you see it needs to be taken.
Absolutely. And it really depends. Like, I love that question, first of all.
Yeah.
It really depends what you're measuring it by. Good for what? Bad for what? Like,
Mm,
if we're being realistic, is it good to totally chill you out and numb your brain so you can escape from your reality? Of course. Does it help you to tap into fantasy? And if you aren't having the overstimulating sex life that maybe you want, conditioned from porn is going to help you to tap into that. Yeah. But from my perspective, is it going to help your brain be healthy? No. Is it going to help your mind be well in terms of not having anxiety and depression, being able to focus, being able to
mm,
be motivated, being able to find pleasure and joy in your life? No, it's not going to do that. Is it going
yeah.
to enhance your relationship? No. This is what science shows about it. So, is it healthy for you? No. And for most people, for the goals, like if we were to poll, like just say we went out on the street right now and we pulled even 1,000 or 100,000 people and we asked them, in this one time around this marble in the sky, your one time around it, what do you want to get out of your life?
Mm,
People won't say, I want to be trapped in my basement watching
right.
performers masturbating. Like, that's not what people envision. What
Right.
people envision is purposeful work, friends that they love and they can laugh their booties off, a partner who makes them feel seen, an awesome sex life that they're actually experiencing, not just watching. So, like, those are the goals. So, to answer the question, like, is it moving you towards your goal? For
Mm,
most people, the answer is absolutely not.
wow. Wow, that's so brilliant. So I am very conflicted on this actually, and
Mhm.
I'd really love to discuss it with you. I've
Let's do
um
it.
yeah, sure. I mean, I normally talk things out with ChatGPT, but I've refrained from doing this
So
because
do
I want to
so
have.
do I. So this is
Yeah, yeah,
perfect because
yeah, exactly. I wanted to have this
Uh-huh.
conversation. Can I share some personal stories?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So
Uh,
when I was like 8, I was about to turn 19. So like basically 18, turning 19,
mm,
I decided that I would quit pornography and I would quit masturbation. And I
mm,
had done that for like a 5-year stint where I
mhm,
was like off of pornography, and then slightly shorter with masturbation,
mhm,
something like close to 5 years, very close to 5 years,
mm. Cool. That's a
shortly
long
after.
time.
Yeah, really fascinating. And at that point, I would say like I was never I don't like maybe then I might have said like I was addicted or whatever, but like it wouldn't have been typical. Like the porn use was like maybe once a week, once a month more like.
Mhm,
And then the masturbation was weekly or twice a week, something like that. So really, really
mhm,
not very. I would consider it like normal use relative to like when you would talk about somebody doing it compulsively or whatever. But what I
uh-huh,
learned, which is fascinating,
uh-huh,
and then binge watching your videos, I see it's fascinating that people actually talk about this is I did not realize how much of a coping mechanism it was until I
Mhm.
had stopped it and then realized how much more difficult life became like 2
Mhm.
months in. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I did not realize that like life was so much harder, and me
Mhm.
using masturbation or pornography was truly like kind of like a sugar to a coffee. You know what I mean? It just makes
Mhm.
it made it less bitter. And through that, yeah, I got really smacked in the face with how
Uh-huh.
difficult life was. But what it
Mhm.
forced me to do over that time period was learn to actually deal with my issues, and it's
Mhm.
fascinating. So I
Uh-huh.
think, and I'd love to discuss this with you and open the floor if you have any thoughts on that, and
Yeah,
maybe some more
100%. I
directed
was
questions.
shifting my notebook so that I could just
Yeah,
jot down just so I didn't lose track of some of the thoughts.
yeah, sure.
So, uh, well, the one thing I wanted to write down so I didn't lose track of it was, the idea of normal. Because you're
Mm,
like, I just consider it to be a normal habit.
right,
But then what you discovered later on is it's not just a quote unquote normal habit. We can go back to that, but like it's not
right,
just a normal habit. It actually was serving as mood regulation for you.
right,
It was a mood regulator. So even at 2 times a week, it was supplying your brain with artificially high levels of dopamine to get you through your life. It's sugar in your bitter coffee. That's
right,
exactly it. And without it, then you feel more anxious, you feel more irritable, you have a difficult time until your brain recalibrates. So this is the essence of compulsion, and the scientific studies support this, that even at 1 time a month consumption, that it disrupts the way that a person moves through the world. Where if you didn't consume porn 1 time a month, you would inherently move through the world differently in terms of your mental and physical state. Meaning, like, you would be sharper, you wouldn't need that dopamine hit. So I love that experience that you had because, it is normal. So going back to normal, it's normal that everybody's doing it. But back to the question, is it healthy? It's not healthy. And you're young and your habit, quote unquote habit, is also young. We know there's tolerance building and there's escalation. It's built in. You're either in a positive feedback loop, you're upward spiral in life, or you're in a negative feedback loop from a neuroscience perspective, downward spiral. So if you continue with that over time, you end up in that downward spiral.
it's fascinating. It's so
Mhm.
fascinating. Yeah. So
And
one of
if
the
I
things.
can just if I can
Yeah,
just
of
share one more thing is that,
course.
I have talked to thousands of people. We'll just leave it at that. Like probably tens of thousands of people whose habits started like yours. And like I just
Right,
talked to a client the other day who he's like, I'm about to lose my business. My wife's about to leave me. My children are about to never talk to me again. My entire life is on the line right now. And I'm like, I got you, because I've worked with a lot of people whose entire lives are on the line. People end up in jail because of different acting out behaviors. So like it starts with a normal habit. And people think I'm filled with hyperbole, but they don't know those thousands of stories because people are at home struggling and suffering in silence, not telling anybody. And
right.
honestly, I think that's a piece that I play in the world is so many people tell me, I thought I was taking this to the grave. They'll tell
Mm,
me the thing they're wrapped up in, and I will help them
yeah.
break free.
It's fascinating, and that's such amazing work you're able to do to find somebody in that dark place and help them get out of it. And a couple of questions that I have that are, maybe seemingly random is like, first of all, is this something like alcohol where it's like, it's probably fine for most people, but can be severely dangerous and addictive, and once it really turns into something bad, it truly does spiral.
No,
Yeah. Okay.
it's different because first of all, it's a behavioral compulsion. So I don't love using the word addiction. It is an addiction, but I will use the word compulsion because many people can't relate to the word addiction until they can.
Mhm.
You know how that goes.
Yeah.
So, like, it's behavioral. When it comes to alcohol, it's substance abuse. So you don't need that substance. Evolutionarily speaking, we are wired for sexuality. So the difference is it's taking a healthy, human, amazing behavior that we can have and enjoy and we're supposed to share with another
Right.
person. It distorts it very much and then it hijacks it and it jacks up the
Yeah.
need for it. It's called a supernormal stimulus.
Yeah.
So the dopamine levels are over 400% over baseline. And it's from a behavior that's supposed to be a healthy behavior. So that's a difference because, people inherently know alcohol use is a bad habit that we have. And most people who do get into use of alcohol, many of them will escalate into misuse and abuse, and maybe again not land on the idea of compulsion or addiction until they're ready to do that. But
Yeah.
it's a little bit different in that it's really a hijacked behavior.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, the way I would understand it is that even though pornography is technically it's not a substance, but what it does to hijack the dopamine receptors and like just like you're saying, it's 400% above baseline, which is it's
Mhm.
crazy. Like that would be like the dopamine serves as the substance there, where it's kind of like I guess I forgot the term you use, supernatural or supernormal.
Yeah, super
Yeah,
normal. Yeah, it's a super
gotcha.
normal. And yes, that's correct. And the same thing happens with
Yeah,
alcohol, but not to the extent like there's dopamine involved in all compulsions or addictions. But really the most dangerous part is like there's actually a natural human need and desire
right.
in there. Like our
Yeah,
our natural need for alcohol, that's not a thing. That's grows
yeah,
over time. And just to
yeah.
add one more point to that is that most people find pornography when they're, we'll just say 10 years old. Most
Right,
people
right, right,
don't
right.
start consuming alcohol until they're 18 or 21 or 25 or whatever. So now we have this very young, underdeveloped brain. Brains develop until the age of 28. So we've got a brain that still has 18 years of developing to do, that it will maladapt. It's called a maladaptive behavior. So a 10-year-old finds porn, couples it with masturbation, it skyrockets their dopamine levels. It takes them away from the stressors of their life, and they begin to regulate their mood at the age of 10. Now, if you never found porn at the age of 10, something stressful happens in your life, and hopefully you have models in your parents or people around you, emotionally intelligent people who go, okay, I know this is difficult, but I know you're strong and you got this.
Hmm.
But now, if you're in your bedroom masturbating, you never get the chance to go, this is difficult because you've escaped those feelings. If you're with me on that. And then
Fascinating.
just one layer,
Yeah.
and we can break it down all you want. It is shown
Yeah.
to actually change identity formation
Mm,
in a really terrible way. It's that maladaptive behavior, basically, Erickson's stages of development, if you know about them, like it will hijack those stages of development. And from that young age of 10, like the stages of development can go in the healthy way, and they're like stairs, they build on each
yeah.
other. If there's a maladaptive behavior that isn't corrected, you take this other staircase into maladaption across your lifetime, affecting every other developmental stage. So that goes back to the stories that I was telling you of all the clients. They're like, I cannot believe I'm in this position. I'm
Right.
47 years old. Like I found porn when I was 10. I didn't know when I was 47 it was going to blow up my life. Those are the steps. You're not
Yeah.
taking the staircase to the left, you're taking it to the right, which are actually also neural pathways.
That's so fascinating, and thank you for sharing. My first job out of grad school, I was working in a school as a school
Mhm.
counselor,
Mhm.
and this was middle school, yeah, 10
Mhm.
to 14, basically.
Well, I know why you're
And
not there anymore because I tell my kids, I have 5 children. I tell my kids, there is no amount of money you could pay me to work in a middle school. My youngest daughter is going to be a freshman in high school.
uh,
And so we just literally, like, we were high fiving that we will be done with the middle school experience because it's not for the faint of heart.
that's so
But
funny. No, I
yeah,
loved it. It was the best job
you
ever. I,
did.
I had to leave
Cool.
for money reasons.
Yeah.
I started my own practice, but
Nice.
uh, yeah, I truly loved it. But it was pretty bizarre. These kids, their first sexual counter or experience, I don't know if you would call pornography a sexual encounter per se, but
Mhm.
like their first
Mhm.
idea about sex and
Mhm.
sexuality is through pornography. And
Mhm.
it's extremely, extremely concerning. It's like their parents are either willfully ignorant of this or just truly don't know the dangers
It's
behind like the
both.
smartphones that they're
Mhm.
right behind the smartphones that they're giving the kids. And it's like
Mhm.
this is their first impression, and it's things that are not normal. it's
Mhm.
it's insane. It's
Yeah.
truly insane. Yeah.
Definitely. And I've started a nonprofit organization. It's currently called pornbrainprevention.org. I'm
Mm.
going to change the name, I think, just to make it take the P word out of it because it's difficult to but it's designed for educational programs for parents, exactly what you're talking about. And my son works for me, my 21-year-old son, and he and I have been really doubling down on like, how can we really get a powerful message that parents can listen to educate parents? And what's happening too, more and more kids are getting in trouble because they're being found with either explicit matter. There's been a couple incidences which have been mind blowing for all people involved at my daughter's middle school. I know this stuff goes on, but nobody believes me type of thing because everybody thinks it's other people it's happening to. But long story short, like if a kiddo gets in trouble, there's no remediation. So my voice, I show up at the school. I'm like, okay, I know these kids are in trouble, but what are we going to do to help them to no longer do these hypersexual
Yeah.
behaviors? Because they will continue because it is a compulsion. So you can't just expel them for 5
Exactly.
days, bring them
Yeah.
back and expect them to be done with it. Like we need to
Yeah.
help these kids. So my son and I were brainstorming like what's a really accessible, powerful way that we can do that. And
Exactly.
I've
Yeah.
been diving into the science on that. I'm in the midst of writing I've written a book. It's called Mind Over Explicit Matter. That book's been out for 6 months. It's almost the 6-month anniversary, and it's dedicated to pornography, to teach people about the harms of pornography addiction and how to recover from porn addiction. But I'm working on my next book, which is expanding that to social media and really focusing on adolescence, like you're talking about, because that's where the birth of all of this happens.
Yes, that's so
And
brilliantly said. Yeah.
it's and a really powerful thing that I've come up with based on all the research I've started to look at so far is that we have 3 reinforcement loops, just like you're talking about. One is early porn exposure. We know from science that when kids find porn earlier, the frequency of porn use is higher the
Mhm.
earlier they find it. That's linked scientifically. Then the way they use social media, we can dive into some of
Right.
that. It's terrifying in a hypersexual way of that young men and young women are acting differently, but kind of playing off of each other. That's a reinforcement loop. And then that's affecting how they interact with each other in real life. And it's
Right.
changing all the kids' identity formation. They're all going for the external validation of the hearts and the likes or the giving of the hearts and the likes. And very few people are forming their own identity internally anymore.
That's so fascinating. I mean, and this brings me to another point I really want to talk to you. It's probably like a two-part point of,
Mhm.
first of all, the way that we handle this, like what's the correct approach? Because punishment is not the right approach. It's truly
Mhm.
unfair. And I think
Mhm.
it applies too with how we talk about social media and social media addiction and stuff, where there is
Mhm.
such shame, right? And guilt and
Mhm.
this punitive kind of
Mhm.
attitude towards it. And it's like,
Yes.
how do we truly deal with it in a way that is graceful and understanding of this challenge and not put it to something like morality, which it truly is not. Like, I think especially in religious circles, for more context on me, I grew up Orthodox Jewish, and
Mm.
especially throughout my teenage years, I was in a much more heavily religious circle. And it's like,
Mhm.
I don't think that there was like, talked about like outward like talked about shame in a way, but it
Mhm.
was clearly something that like it's not okay, and there was a sense of like um I don't know, I kind of want to be careful here. I don't want to like overgeneralize and be like they were
I feel you because I
shaming.
grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up Irish Catholic.
Mm,
I joke all the time, and people in the Catholic Church like they will joke with me, but I try to be delicate about it because I am very spiritual,
mhm.
like holding on to the underpinnings. But I joke that I'm a recovering Catholic because there's so much shame. There's so much
Yeah,
shame. Like there
fascinating.
does there's they don't mean to. It just can
Yeah.
produce a lot of shame. And the way I'm trying to do it is just to see the struggle that I mean, honestly, I did it on accident. So my story is that I didn't focus my work on porn until it landed in my lap with somebody that I know. And I
Mm,
couldn't shake it. I literally like
yeah.
couldn't work on other stuff. I just went down the world's largest rabbit hole, applying everything I already knew to porn, which didn't take long to do, blew my mind. And then I'm like, I literally just sat there like, am I gonna go into porn, working on porn? Everyone's gonna freak out. And then I'm like, this is the biggest impact I can have on the world. I really felt like I had this huge secret. Like, But even me, I named it on my hard drive. I named it Passion Project. That's what the folder said because I didn't
Mm,
want to name it anything having to do with porn. And I felt shame telling my parents this is my work. I'm like, this is my
yeah.
work. It's like, So anyway, being able to just empathize compassionately with the position people are in. This is a compulsion. This is an addiction. Even when it comes to the liking and the hearting on social media for hypersexualized content, you get a dopamine rush when you do that. It's all about the dopamine rush. And back to your point is that I like to liken it to an eating disorder because we have to eat. So it does take all the shame out. If you had an eating disorder, would you be upset with your partner if they had an eating disorder? You wouldn't like it. You would be very highly concerned, but you wouldn't be mad. You
I
wouldn't be
think a lot of people would
personally
be, unfortunately.
well, you wouldn't be personally
Yeah.
offended by the
Mm,
cake. Like you wouldn't
mhm,
be, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it's very different. And sometimes I'll even liken it to cancer because, and
Mm,
I know some people might not like that, but like this is a deeply rooted metabolic issue. It's a neurobiological issue. And, there's no place for shame in that. Your
yeah.
person has a problem. And yes, I
Right.
understand all the behaviors that come from it. And we can talk about that if you want, but like it's maddening because it leads to manipulation and defensiveness and all of that. But that is a projection of the person's shame
Yeah.
when they're doing that to another person. So, I try to help people see that that shame is because of what we already talked about, the incongruency between the life they wanted and they saw for themselves and what they're shackled to that's why I try to tell them you are shackled to porn or to masturbation or whatever behavior for the dopamine. Your brain got linked to it when you were young and we can unlink it. And it's not you, it's the linking that's the problem. You aren't the problem. And I characterize it as the hijacker because basically the brain's been hijacked by this dopamine dependency. So I tell people all the time when I work with couples, there's three people in your relationship or three, entities: you, your partner, and the hijacker. And the hijacker's got to go.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Mm.
Doctor, I do want to discuss your experience more. So, like, when you first started on your journey,
Mm.
as you were saying, you weren't thinking about going into pornography,
Mm.
um, and helping people get out of that. So, it's like, what was kind of your path? I'm curious to hear more. You already start to open up that
Mhm.
maybe there was, somebody in your life that you knew, and I'm
Mhm.
just curious to understand more about how this evolved for you and why this is such an important issue.
Yeah, sure. So my husband and we still have a practice. He runs it, a brick and mortar practice in town. And I primarily focused on like neurodevelopmental disorders like ADHD, anxiety, which is not neurodevelopmental, but anxiety, also neurocognitive, neurodevelopmental types of challenges. And a friend of mine who was a friend, but also a client, was in my office and basically I didn't know. I knew I wasn't helping him. And most of the people, I use technology in my work. So I can see how people's brains perform. It's called QEG brain mapping. I can literally see the brain performance pattern of a person. I can see if you have ADHD. I can see if you have anxiety. Porn wasn't on my radar, but now I know what porn addiction looks like and I know what ED looks like. But, this friend of mine in the book, I call him Sam, came in and then he blurted out, "I watch porn." And like with tons of shame. And I'm like, "And how does this apply to our work?" But I really cared for him and I couldn't let it go. And I referred him to a CSAT, a sex addiction therapist that I knew. He went off. He was still coming to me for neurofeedback is the modality that I use. So in neurofeedback, I can see how a person's brain performs on a day-to-day basis. I can track that. So I can track everybody else's. Everybody else makes improvements. He's not making improvements. Now, this goes back to the idea it's a behavioral addiction. So every single day, he's reinforcing the dysregulated brain pattern. Other people weren't doing that because I didn't have other people with addictions in my practice. So I couldn't let it go. I ended up training under some of the top sex addiction therapists in the country. Um, he never got better with the other people that he worked with. So he's still in my practice for neurofeedback. He's not getting better. He's about to get divorced. He's about to get fired, all the things that I was talking about. And I figured it out. I'm like, I know what to do. And actually, it's become the program that I offer people now. So, but there was like a 2-year time frame in between. And I created this program and he thought it was crazy, but I had him do all the steps to it. I changed the neurofeedback protocols because I finally understood the dopamine dependency, what that hijacking looks like in the brain. When I changed the protocols, his brain started to move. That allowed him to not need the dopamine from porn. So now what I do too is I use the technology for 30 days. Then I have people try to do not try, but succeed at using the behavioral strategies. And his whole life got not only fine, it got amazing. So then I was obviously totally jazzed up because I felt like I played a key role in not having his family fall apart, not having his life fall apart. And that's when I sat and I'm like, I have to tell the world about this. I made one YouTube video that says nothing of any particular content. It's just like, don't watch porn. Porn's bad for you. And then I got a notification like 3 months later that video had been viewed 5 million times or whatever it was. And it was really cool. It was actually really cool because I was still struggling, like if I should like really go into this. I wanted to. I was still doing all my other the new training that I was doing. What happened was on that YouTube video, people showed up and they're like, and again, didn't say anything. Please make more videos. Like, this is amazing. Thank you. Make more videos. And I just started making videos organically. And that's how I got into YouTube. And then I created the program from there. Yeah, wild, right?
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, I believe this is a little bit of an aside on a personal standpoint. I was a college professor before I started my practice. Like, I always felt discontented, even though, I was making good money. As a college professor, I actually had to work like 7 or 8 months a year. And as a mom of 5 kids, I had the perfect job and lifestyle. It was like I should have locked it in for sake of ease, but like I was discontented. I never felt like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And one of my favorite authors is Stephen Pressfield. Do you know his work?
Sounds kind of familiar.
He's amazing. I'll have to think of what his book is called, but he has in the book, he talks about this concept, and you probably know this concept of your shadow self. It's like you're doing a job that's just 1 degree off of what you were meant to do. I felt that. So right after I got promoted and tenured at the university, I never saw the promotion. I got a huge financial promotion and I was tenured, locked in for life. I left and I opened my neurofeedback practice. And that's why when porn came along, I'm like, this is it. Like, even though it's super scary, this is amazing because I know I can help lots of people here. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's when I just pivoted all my work. I left the office with my husband. I taught him. It took me 2 years to teach him how to do everything I knew how to do there. I taught him how to do it, and I started my online practice.
That's so fascinating. I can't believe it. Like, you've climbed to the top of something, right? Like, this tenure position is something that like people dream of, to be able to get. Like, even to get a job as a professor is difficult enough, right? And then
totally, it was awesome too.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it, but I felt a little
Right.
like, and I think other people feel that. Like,
Yeah.
you might love a thing you're doing, but you also might have this little like hole. You're not doing the thing. And I believe like this is the spiritual part of the work that I do. Like, when you find your true purpose, first of all, you know it. Like, I could work all day, every day, all day, every day. It wouldn't bother me at all. It's not even work, and sometimes I do. But at the same time, like, then, a literary agent heard my podcast. I just I wanted to write a book because I wanted it so that people could access it. So I'd already written the book, which, talk about shadow versions. It was so much worse than it is now, but I had already written the book and my assistant and I were already uploading it to Amazon to sell myself. And this literary agent reaches out and he's like, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I'm like, actually, I already have one written, but I'm half done uploading it to Amazon. So no, thank you. and he's like, and he's
Yeah.
like, I would really like you to reconsider because I think I can, get this published through a major publishing house, which, it's published through HarperCollins. So he convinced me, and obviously, but my point about that is when you commit to a thing, even though it's scary, and even if you leave a thing that seems perfect, like once you actually kind of lock into the thing that fills you with joy and you're serving humanity and other people, it'll unfold and flow for you too.
That's so beautiful. I love that you say that, and I always get conflicted hearing things like this because similarly, I love being a therapist and I love therapy.
Mhm.
It's an awesome job, and I think even if this podcast took off and I was able to do that full time, I would still probably see a few clients a week because I
Mhm.
do enjoy it and I love helping people. But
Mhm.
it's like it just becomes more confusing because it's like I don't see this. I would love for this podcast to take off. I
Mhm.
don't really see it ever becoming more than a serious hobby,
Mhm.
Um, and
Well,
and
if
funny
if
enough,
you are okay with me
yeah.
gently and
Yeah.
lovingly reframe, which is this is
Okay.
what I do in my work, by the way. I'll be like,
Of course,
may
yeah.
I reframe this for you? Is that like, if I believe you have to know what you want, then it comes to you. Like,
Mm.
and I've done it multiple times. I joke that my life happens in 7-year chapters. And it has
Yeah,
because
yeah,
all the things I've done have been amazing, but
yeah,
then I want more, and that's growth, that's evolution.
yeah.
And you do have to get quiet with yourself. Like, I had to quit that job. I didn't have anything lined up. I had nothing lined up. I quit that job on the sheer faith that in doing so, but I think faith, you also have to be pragmatic. Like, I gave
Interesting, yeah.
myself a time frame where I'm like, I'm going to figure out what my next step was. And it came to me actually. A friend of a friend said, you should do neurofeedback. And I'm like, do neurofeedback. What do you mean by that? But I was already using EEG for studies as a professor. I was already
Wow,
using the tech. And
right.
he's like, you should
Didn't
get
wait,
your
where were
own
you teaching
system.
in the
I was teaching in
yeah,
Pennsylvania at Edinburgh University,
right.
it's called, in
What was the class
Pennsylvania.
though?
I lived.
Nice,
I taught in the communication disorders and sciences department. I
nice.
would teach
Yeah,
the neuroscience courses. I would teach the cognitive types of courses. So what I taught
fascinating.
is always about like how brain functioning affects how we think. That's what
Uh-huh.
cognition is. So that was my primary jam.
Fascinating. Okay, I interrupted you.
Mhm.
You were saying that somebody came to you telling you should do,
Yeah. And
neurofeedback,
I'm
and you were
like,
already
yeah. And he's like, you should do neurofeedback. And I'm like, what do you mean? Do it. Because I didn't fully realize, like, because not many people practice neurofeedback, because again, it's on the fringe. I've been on the fringe my whole life, just so you know, too. Like, leaving a tenured professorship to do a practice that nobody does,
Yeah,
like that. But when he said it to me, like, I just lit up. I'm like, I'm going to do neurofeedback. And I had to buy my first system, very expensive. Like, I had 0 clients. And in the practice that we bought was just supposed to be for my husband. And I was going to figure out what I was going to do. And I'm like, can I have a room in the practice? And he's like, sure. So he gave me a room. And then, I love to work. So I doubled down on it. And before you knew it, I had taken most of the rooms in the practice and we had to get another suite.
that's wild. That's so wild. Can we
But
actually
because,
talk about yeah,
mhm.
can we talk about neurofeedback a little bit? Because it's
Yeah.
very magical, and I'd love
Hmm.
to I know very little about it.
Hmm.
I just was introduced to
Yeah.
it from, The
It
Body Keeps the
is.
Score. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love it. Like, I love that, the book and how it a lot of books will talk about it, but leave it kind of out there as,
Mm,
like Norman Deutsch talks about it in his books too. Like a lot of big, players will talk about neurofeedback, but just skim the surface on it. So
mm, yeah.
neurofeedback seems really magical, but I love to tell people that I work with, like, if you just start thinking about it logically, if you understand some of this, it becomes really easy to see that it's surface level magical, but it's so practical. And that's why I want people to know there's data for every single thing that I do.
Mm,
So, the essence, the very short version is that, like, basically, our brains will shift gears between, we can, for sake of ease, for right now, we'll just chunk it into 3 categories. So it will shift between braking, neutral, and acceleration. That's what the brain
Mhm.
does all day long, right? So, like, when you wake up, you feel calm and alert. That means you're in the calm focus mode in the middle, right? Then you're
Mhm.
you're gently accelerating. Then if you go sit on the couch and you're just totally chilling, you're in neutral. And then when you get in bed and you start to feel groggy and you fall asleep, your brain's using the braking that it naturally should. That's a healthy
Mhm.
brain. That's
Mhm.
circadian rhythms. That's the flow, what your brain's supposed to do. So, what happens in porn addiction, and we can talk about anything else that you want, but what happens in porn addiction, I call it strained brain. The brain basically becomes strained because it's using too much of the fast speed, acceleration, and too much of the slow speed because of fatigue, wired and tired. It gets stuck in far out in the extremes, and a person feels stressed out and exhausted at the same time. And that is because of the need for dopamine. So when you get dopamine from the screen, you're actually left in a dopamine deficit back in your life. You're left with high levels of cortisol. So
Mhm.
you're pulled back for dopamine. But what neurofeedback does on the brain map is I can see how your brain is performing. And,
Mhm.
for sake of ease, are you using strain brain? If a person has ED, their brain has basically shifted into artificially high neutral.
Mhm.
Baseline arousal has been just stuck in neutral. You're get up and go, got up and went. You can't be aroused. You need massive amounts of dopamine from pornography, super normal stimulus. So when I start working with people, I can identify the very specific brain pattern in all the brain areas that they're using. And then essentially, I've designed the protocols for porn addiction. Most people have no clue, just like I had no clue back when I wasn't working with porn. But over the last, decade, I have seen tens of thousands of brains that are addicted to porn. I'm in the midst of doing a study that will add to the scientific literature. And
That is, yeah.
speaking about the passion, for Christmas last year, I told my husband I'm gonna hire this data scientist from
Mhm.
Israel. He's like the one guy who knows how to look at this data. He's done it before.
Mhm.
Very expensive. My husband's like, "You're nuts." I'm like, "It's my Christmas gift to myself because I need to know if there are statistically significant findings." And
Mm.
there's 3 of them. So I'm like, "Merry Christmas to me," just
Yeah,
recently.
that's
But just
fascinating.
one
Can you
just one
share?
more just one more thing is that, like, what neurofeedback literally does is it's a workout for your brain. This is the
Mm.
magical part, is that you put the hardware on, and I have my own app, which is, a white label app that's supported by the biggest neurofeedback app out there. I'm working with the best technology. I didn't wire it together in my basement, just so you know.
Sure.
But
Yes.
what it
Yeah.
does is it's a passive treatment. You don't have to try. This is why it works. You put the hardware on, you press the button on the app, and all you have to do is stream something, do a game, listen to audio, and essentially the video plays bright and the audio plays loud if your brain is hitting the marks that I've set. If your
Mhm.
brain goes back to strain brain or drain brain, the ED brain, if it goes back to that dysregulated brain that's using the dysfunctional pattern, the screen goes low and the screen goes dim, the audio goes low. So I think of it, this is what I tell people because it seems magical.
Interesting.
I think of it
Yeah.
as bicep curls for your brain.
Yeah.
Like, if you want a strong muscle of your bicep, like, do you have to think about it a lot and talk about it a lot? No. What you have to do is start cranking the bicep curls. That's what the technology does.
Yeah.
But the behavioral piece, like with therapy and the coaching that I also do, is that skill building. Once you
Mhm.
regulate the brain, you need the skills to regulate your mood by yourself. You have to figure
Yeah.
that out. You have to figure out how to get healthy dopamine from your life. You have to figure out how to communicate with your relationships better. There's a lot of behavioral work on the back end, but first to help regulate the brain.
This is, my mind is truly blown by this, and there's so many directions I really want to go down. And I mean, firstly, just thinking back to something you mentioned a little earlier, like you're saying how your life works in these 7 year chapters. I was laughing because I was like, it resonates with me so strongly too. I don't know about exactly 7 years, but like, I think the way things have changed from like, growing up one way, ultra orthodox, being a therapist, content creation, like so many different chapters, and it comes up. And I'm really looking at your story, and I'm
Mhm.
truly blown away and fascinated by how you found this neural feedback. You went all in. It sounds like you didn't even know anything about it to begin
I
with, right?
didn't.
Aside for you were using it and for teaching. Um, it really blows my mind. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like, have you ever used the Headspace app?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how he's like, oh, as soon as you notice the mind gets distracted, you just come right back. It's kind of
Hmm.
like imagine something could kind of like read your mind and then like
Hmm.
gently nudge you every time you kind of get distracted. you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
basically what it does. That's what it
yeah.
will do for you.
Right. Exactly. So that's fascinating that that actually works, and it's like such a genius hack. It's like we figured out this thing. It's so brilliant. Um, is this pseudoscience, or is this like what's
Mm-mm.
the
No, there's
yeah
thousands and thousands of scientific studies, and
yeah
EEG itself is over 125 years old, but
oh well
QEEG and neurofeedback is almost 70 years old. So again, it's not like 5 years old, but
right
it
right
doesn't
right
fit into the
so
format of,
yeah
standard healthcare.
yeah
Um, but
the
it's
reason the
amazing.
reason I ask
I've
is
used it.
yeah
I've used it myself
of
for
course
years, just so you know,
right
and my whole family has used it. I have lots of stories that I can tell there, but I used to speak twice
mm.
as fast as I speak now. When I was
Oh
a
really
college
okay
professor,
oh,
I would speak very fast. My brain was running twice as fast as it is now. And I never felt anxious, but I definitely like in hindsight, I could see how ramped up that version of me was
mm.
compared to, like, I still am an over functioner or a highly productive person, but it's with this calm energy now instead of this
Mm.
like strung out energy. We're back at the university. People would joke with me, but now, hindsight, about how fast my pace was down the hall. Everybody could hear
Mm.
me coming because my footsteps were quadruply fast than anybody's else, and I prided myself on that. But now I
Mm.
look back and I'm like, oh, that poor girl who had to walk 4 times faster than I. I still walk fast is the reality, but. And then if I could just
Well,
share one thing too about
sure.
like the 7 year chapters, one thing that makes me, I guess, like not unique, but I don't know, different from a lot of people is I truly see like, I'm 52 years old. I'm halfway through this life. Like, I want to leave it all on the floor because
Mm.
not just for me, this isn't like a pleasure thing, but it's like if something's in my heart, in my mind, and I am excited about it, that is the path I'm supposed to take because that is how I can contribute. And if my excitement dims for that thing and I become excited, now, of course, I've done it so many times, it's just totally natural. I expect it. Most other people, they will get stuck in a rut and they will live their entire life. I come from a family of six, which I talk about them all the time. I don't think they listen to my content or they would be mad. Plus, I wrote it in my book and they told me they have not shared my book with my parents. I'm like, that's good, probably.
yeah
I don't say anything bad. I just say we
right
have your standard family dysfunction and
mm.
that I have been working on breaking free from the dysfunction and having the courage to step into the thing that's calling me. None of them did. They all have married, their high school sweethearts. They all live in the homes that they first bought. They work at the same job they've worked at. And that's fine. But like, I think for me and what I want for people is if you feel that call, have the courage. What's the worst thing that can happen? And actually, an exercise I have people do is just do a pre-mortem, take it all the way down to the very bottom barrel thing that can happen. You will find it's not that bad. So you should just
Mm.
try, you know, right?
yeah
If you stopped your practice right now to triple down on your podcast, like if it didn't take off, you could just go back to your practice, right? You built it once, you can build it again.
I can't do that. Now it's like I gotta support a kid and a wife, and it's tough. I mean, my wife works
I
too,
have
but
5
like,
children, you know that, right? Trust me, I know the feeling of
yeah,
that, but that's why
yeah,
I just trust in, like, it's gonna work
right.
out, but then the trust isn't like it's gonna work out and I sit around. I work really hard to, kinda flow with it.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I guess it's like having the courage to actually take the chance on yourself, and
Mhm.
I guess I'm working my way there.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So the reason I asked if it's pseudoscience is because I'm just like, this is fascinating. It needs to be used more. It needs to be heard about, and
Mhm.
it's like neural feedback is just truly incredible. Like, what's the ways that it could actually be used more? Because I feel like most people haven't heard of it, and
Yeah,
it sounds really
absolutely.
powerful and effective. Yeah.
The number one utility I think is, well, especially in the space of screen addictions, is the most powerful thing that it does is it will reduce your stress and increase your calm focus. Like, who couldn't use that, right? And actually, just another story about that. One of my kids, a long time ago, 10 years ago, I forget who was president. I think it was Barack Obama. They're like, if the president could implement one strategy that would have a huge impact on the world, what do you think he should do? I'm like, every person should have mandatory access to neurofeedback.
Mm,
Because what neurofeedback does is it neurologically regulates your brain for enhanced self regulation. In a
mm,
world filled with self regulated people, all the things that people are doing that come from dysregulation, which includes all the drama, all the violence, all the bad, challenging stuff in the world, all comes from dysregulated people. No calm focused people kill
yeah.
other people. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so dysregulated people do those things. And at the same time, self regulated people can stay calm when the challenges are happening. And I always tell the story of Edison, like Thomas Edison's factory burnt down. It's a true story. And he was very regulated. And he sent his son to get his wife and told him to tell her she will never see a fire like this again. And I think, like, by today's standards, it was like hundreds of billions of dollars worth of his inventions lit on fire.
Wow.
But a self regulated person goes, it is what it is. Yeah, I don't love it. It is what it is. I accept what's happening to me. But then the next day, he started to build a new factory.
Wow.
That's
To
what's
like get on.
self-regulated.
Right.
So, like, that's the utility of neurofeedback. All the
Exactly. Yeah.
all the challenging things that happen to you, you can handle them. Right? Later on when you're how old is your child?
She's 18 months now.
Okay, so later on when it's 2 a.m. and your 18-month-old wakes up, and honestly, I did neurofeedback like when my kids were young, starting, I have 5, my first 4 are all a year apart. By my youngest daughter, like nothing bothered me. Like I'd be up all night every night with like 3 kids. And yeah, I wish I was sleeping, but like, before that, you're so irritable, you're irritated that you got to deal with this stuff. Traffic's a problem. You feel late for everything, you're overwhelmed. Like now it's just like, all right, like I drop my son off and he immediately calls to say he forgot his computer, which means I've got to turn around and bring it to him. All right. Not like what it used to be where it'd be like, how'd you forget your computer? Like
Mm,
that's what regulated people do.
yeah.
Everybody could use a little bit more of that. And I've hit, like in my life, I've probably hit my daughter's funny because she says she's like, because I was telling you I had to have something done. I've been in pain, and I was malfunctioning the other night, and people wanted to go out for dinner. I'm like, okay, fine, we'll go out for dinner. I'll come home. And I'm like, I've got to go home. I'm malfunctioning. She's like, you're the jolliest malfunctioner I've ever met. You know? And I love that because other people malfunction, they yell, they cry. I'm like, I need to go right now, please. I'm malfunctioning, and you're the
Yeah.
jolliest malfunctioner. I'm like, that's, people say things, just little things like that to me. And I'm like, the work pays off there because honestly, like, there's not much that
Yeah.
can set me off.
Okay, this is brilliant. And what I really want to ask you, and this is definitely related to earlier conversations we've had, is kind of like what is healthy slash and or reasonable. And I think that, that's either when talking about porn or masturbation. I think it's you're allowed to obviously feel overwhelmed sometimes and blow up like especially you're talking about like that Edison story. I think that standard is extremely high, right? To be able to be
Mhm.
calm with something like that. It, it's obviously an ideal, and it would be a good thing if everyone could handle that. But is that like a reasonable expectation or reasonable standard for one to hold oneself to?
No,
Um,
I agree
right.
with you because that's a
Yeah.
unicorn that I've been chasing and I'm very excited. But
Mm,
this is what I want for people. Your factory blows up, you yell, not at your spouse, not at your kids. You go have yourself a mantrum or a meltdown. you cry. Emotions last 90 seconds. We know that scientifically. So if you let your emotions move through you when you feel them, and I do that. Like, but thankfully, what I've been able to do is like if somebody says something to me, I feel the spike of rage, we'll call it. But then instead of yelling at that person, I can say, that's not acceptable. And I won't be spoken to like that. And I will walk away. That's regulation.
Yeah.
But then if I'm mad, like if my buttons are pushed, this is what I want for people. Your buttons are pushed and you're about to freak out on somebody, you walk away. You know what you're going to do. You don't freak out on you don't freak out on anybody ever again. You learn how to go have your emotions, work through them, bring yourself back down. That's self regulation. Figure out what you need. That's your healthy boundaries. Learn how to communicate that to other people and then stick to it. So, in that world, porn for mood regulation isn't necessary because you just regulated your mood. And
Mhm.
to answer your question about masturbation, like we're talking about compulsive masturbation. We're talking about people who are using it, like you said, sugar in the coffee, even if it's not that often. So, like, if your goal is a healthy relationship, masturbation probably, I'm going to use the word probably, but, likely doesn't fit into that relationship. Secretively, it definitely doesn't fit into the relationship unless you and your partner have agreed that you have secrets. So, the idea is like, what is it bringing you if it's not mood regulation? So if you, there, back to your question too about alcohol, I guess, like to tie a couple things together, there's very few people when it comes to masturbation that will masturbate without going to fantasy or euphoric recall of pornography. There's very few people who built a consistent masturbation habit, in quotes, that didn't do it with porn. So
Mm.
if you're the one person out of a million who has a healthy masturbation habit, that wouldn't be one that involved a supernormal stimulus because that would be an embodiment exercise. But that is not happening to the
Mm.
99.9%. Like that, back to your question about, maybe the one person, like there's the
Yeah.
one person out there that masturbates every once in a while. They stay with the feelings in their body. They don't dissociate to fantasy. They're not thinking about the high supernormal
Right.
stimuli.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting distinction that you bring up, like this difference between it being an embodiment activity versus something that's a distraction, right? And
Mhm.
and something that I guess is
Escape.
used right as an escape, something external to take you out of the reality.
Mhm.
And I guess I kind of want to ask. I think there's confusion, and I don't think we closed the loop on this. Is like, how do we take out the shame in association with sexuality? And like, are you saying? And again, like I think you've made some of these points, but I do want to ask you more directly. Like, are you saying that masturbation is or pornography is never healthy?
Mhm.
Um,
It's never healthy.
right, never healthy. Wow, even
It's
masturbation.
no,
Right.
I would contend no. Like, and
That's really fascinating to me. Yeah,
I would, again, it's what's your goal?
yeah.
What's your goal?
Okay.
Like, you know, and
Right.
if you go back to equating it to food, like,
Yeah.
is it ever healthy to eat a whole cake in the basement? Is
But maybe okay, so maybe it's not like a whole cake, right? Like let's say it's like
but
a
it is.
Snickers bar, right?
It's a super
It's a whole
normal
cake.
it's a super
Okay.
normal stimulus. It's a whole cake.
Is the Snickers bar also super normal stimulus?
No.
Okay.
Haven't you seen the commercials where
Yeah.
Aretha Franklin turns into the guy?
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong, it's sugar,
Yeah.
but like, the Snickers bar, maybe like if we're gonna stay in the analogy, like maybe that's the craziest sexual thing you and your partner will do. Like, but that's an embodiment exercise. It's a shared
Right.
actual experience that you are having. Every time you go to pornography, it's fantasy. It's not real. Those are
So
performers. They are
just
not people in your
yeah.
life. You're
Okay, but the thing
connecting
is
your brain
yeah.
sexually to fakeness, not to
Okay, got it.
reality.
Yes. Okay. Here's how I understand it though, and what you're saying. You can correct me if I'm misunderstanding this. Like when you talk about eating a whole cake in the basement, that
Mhm.
is like a extremely unhealthy. Like to me, I'm like, you're gonna throw up after that. That's not healthy at all, and you're truly gonna damage your body. I think even one time, it's probably damaging, even once. Is that like really what you're saying? Like it's that bad?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Yep,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like especially we know, like, in the essence of pornography, what will happen is you will be satiated and want more. Like, it doesn't leave you sick at first. It leaves you sick
Mhm.
eventually. At first, and people with eating disorders know this. Like, they are doing things like this. Like, that's why the equate like a Snickers bar would never do it for a person with an eating disorder, because everybody, most people have a Snickers bar every once in a while type of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, no. And then
Okay, so
especially the shame
yeah.
also comes from
Right.
hiding it from people. That's why
Okay.
the secret sex life
Right.
part, that's what really creates the
Right.
incongruency. That's why I said, like, if and I made this analogy on the Jubilee show, if two people agree to both watch pornography or to watch it together, like, that will work for them. You'll have congruency, but now you have two unhealthy people, like two alcoholics who have a blast,
Mhm.
drinking a lot, even if they only have 2 drinks, you know what I mean? Like,
Right,
because
right, right.
sometimes they're having 4 drinks,
Yeah.
so it's an unhealthy behavior. So,
Right.
yeah, no, it leads to more. That's the essence of dopamine. It's the molecule of motivation, more, and pleasure. And it's
Yeah.
actually the motivation back for more that's the dangerous part. That's why the
Mhm.
supernormal stimulus, that's the part, not even the pleasure part. It's the motivation back for more.
Right. I think maybe like the understanding of like how addictive it can truly be when it's like you have the stimulus and then you're talking about the intense dopamine and then it's depleted. So then you're left with all the cortisol and then wanting to go back for more. So it's like it's under the radar, very addictive. I mean, I think this makes our problem worse of like how do we take away the shame though? Because I think now people are doing this compulsively
Mhm,
and they know they're harming themselves now. So like that would
mm,
increase the shame in my mind. And it's like, how do we, make it
mhm.
easier for people to talk
W
about it, to open up, to
Yeah, and
to, you know,
I
not
think
keep it a secret.
the science piece helps a lot, because
Mhm.
when you go, this is a neurobiological dysfunction,
Mhm.
like, on accident. And I tell people all the time, because I do talk to people all the time who, when they see their brain maps, I'll do a person's brain map and I will show them significant dysfunction from porn. And people are like very upset with themselves. And I say, you didn't know. And by the time you knew, you were deep into this. Like, this is what's happening to everybody. So the solution to that is making people know as early as possible.
Mhm.
And I tell people all the time, like, I'm not trying to freak you out. I'm not trying to cause emergency, but I am trying to cause urgency, because this stuff is real. This is real. I'm not making this up. Like, I've seen this in so many people. And back to the conversation about adolescence, like, we need remediation for kids who are already getting sucked into this, so we can nip that in the 14-year-old bud, so it doesn't become the 40-year-old who will have bigger problems, because we have the first generation now of digital natives, they call it. Kids who had phones in their pocket at 4 years old. We're in the first generation of that. That's going to have massive ramifications in we're already seeing it, but it's going to be even worse in 20 years.
Yeah, yeah, it is really wild. It concerns me. I think even me as an adult, like the types of things that you could just see on social media and be exposed to, it's crazy. And it's like the kids are just seeing the most horrific things, and it's like numb to it in
Absolutely.
many cases. Yeah, it's like that is for sure causing trauma and like vicarious trauma responses, and it's often why I
Yeah, and
think people.
it's changing how
Yeah,
people interact with each other,
right.
because now, like, the thing I was going to say earlier is, we know from studies that young girls, 14-year-old girls, 70% report getting unsolicited genital pictures from boys and being solicited for nudes. So this is just commonplace.
Yeah,
Girls, just young girls, they're just getting pictures from boys. Like, this is what it sets up. It's setting these dynamics up, because we have self-objectified young women, for the most part, posting, images, waiting for the hearts,
yeah,
and then men consuming it. It's like really distorting relationships. And what do we do
fascinating.
about it
Yeah,
as parents? We talk to kids. Like, going back to your point too, like, are parents ignorant to it? The answer to that is yes, because when these incidents happen in the middle school, the parents of the kids that were involved were blown away that their kids were involved. And I'm like, I
I'm
know,
sure.
because I'm
Yeah,
like, I know. And then having to, or just having the courage to talk about it. My parents never, ever used the word sex, ever. And like one blessing out of this work, falling into my lap is we use the words porn and masturbation more than any family really should. And my kids understand, like, the consequences of this, not from a punishment. It's from me teaching them how to regulate themselves. So if anybody has big feelings in my house, have them. They don't freak me out. If you are having a moment, I'm here for you when I will co-regulate you because you're my precious children. Most other people won't. And I will be here for you as you work your way through those emotions. You don't have to hide them. You don't have to go to your room and get rid of them. They are okay here. And we've had lots of experiences in my family where, stuff went down and everyone's having, whoever's having the emotions, all the other kids know.
Yeah.
And then everybody, it's really cool. We've grown as a family, just being able to be like, okay, we can show up for all this stuff. We don't have to pretend it's not happening.
Yeah.
We don't have to run from it.
That's beautiful, Doctor, and Dr. Trish, and you're setting such a good example. I think part of the problem in my mind is that parents are not as equipped as you are here, and it's like
Mhm.
I think often parents will view it as like a moral flaw of some sort. Meanwhile, it's like you're
Yeah.
giving a kid an unfiltered smartphone in their
Yeah.
pocket where they could take anywhere and they have
Mhm.
access to these things. And, they're
Mhm.
14 and it's
Yep.
already a confusing time. They're
Mhm.
curious about this stuff. It's
Mhm.
taboo. They maybe
Mhm.
haven't addressed the topic so well.
Mhm.
And it's like, what do
Well,
they do when they catch their
let
child
me
doing
tell
this?
you what
Right.
they do. They watch my new YouTube channel, which actually
Yeah.
I've had two YouTube channels.
Mhm.
What's interesting is I've had a brain YouTube channel for a very long time. It's always had 300 views or something. That
Mhm.
porn video I put on its own channel. Like I didn't want it on my channel, so I just put it over here on a brand new channel. I made that porn video, and that's why I didn't know it had millions of views because
Mhm.
I never went on there. I got a notification. Anyways, that original channel, I've really kind of abandoned it just because I've been focused on porn and explicit matter. But this is very important to me because I need to go upstream. I feel a significant need to. I'm talking to the people who are already wrapped up in porn, but I'm like, long story short, I've called that channel. I just rolled it out this week. I'm calling it Super Normal after Super Normal Stimuli. And there is a playlist for parents because a lot of parents ask me, and I'm not like using the P word a lot because that does freak people out, but I will incorporate explicit matter, definitely social media, and just let parents know what they need to do. It's not easy. I've done it. I've done it with
Yeah.
my kids. Having 5 kids, their struggles with technology are all different. Each 5 of them. It's really wild. Like, if you would have asked me this 20 years ago, like, I would not have been able to tell you. So I know from a very personal standpoint, I can't just say, "Okay, this is what you do with your kid." Boom, boom, boom. It doesn't work that way. The way that it works is, this is what you have to consider for your particular kiddo, and you need to learn what's going on, and then you have to have the strength to be the co-regulator until they can do it for themselves. And I can give you 100 stories, but one story is about my son Seamus, who just left for college on Friday. He's gamer. Gamers are gonna game is his saying, but he meets all of his friends. They're all gamers. They very big social community. But when he was young, I'm like, you need to be outside more than double the amount of time you're on your game. So he could be on the games for an hour, hour and a half. They convinced me an hour. You can't get anywhere in an hour, the kids. And hour and a half later, I would make him get off. And he would have to go outside and play for at least 3 hours. And it's so cool because that took me a million times, by the way, 10,000 times in
Yeah.
the essence of Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 times later of me going up there, telling me needs to, or if he didn't, if he wouldn't do that, we would take his cord away. I always give
Mhm.
kids a second chance because I'm trying to
Yeah.
teach them to regulate. But then if they can't take the
Right.
second chance, then the cord gets taken away for the next day. You always
Yeah.
earn your privilege. Today, you earn your privileges for tomorrow. You don't balance that schedule, you don't get the privilege tomorrow. This takes a lot of fortitude as a parent, especially if you're running defense with 5 kids.
Mhm.
And so, long story short, he's 18. He just left for school. It's so cool because he'll be on his game and I'll feel like I need to go tell him because I feel like he's been up there too long. He's been gone playing pickleball with his friends for like a long time. Or I'll text him like, go to sleep. And he's already asleep. Yeah. So,
Right.
the student has become the master in that case. Like he's internalized self regulation. But I talked to him about that too. I'm like, if you need to set timers right now. But that's an external way of regulating. You need to. I'm like, I'm not coming up here. You need to set the timer and you need to get yourself outside. Because co regulating is I help you do it. But ultimately, if he's going to go to college and not game all the time, it's got to be internalized. So we've worked on that for so long. So I've done that in different ways with each kid. Each kid needed a different thing.
That's fascinating. I mean, my first impression is like, that's so mean. You know?
So
Just
mean.
truly forcing them. Yeah,
Oh, well,
right? But it's
yeah. And
yeah.
I am, the kids and I joke like, I'm actually like kind of a pushover.
Mm.
like they all know how to hit the buttons perfectly to get me to sing,
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very difficult for me to
Mm,
go to do that. But every time I do it, I think I'm doing this for them. I'm not doing this
yeah,
against them. This is for them. And I have to have the strength for them to be mad at me. And I've
yeah.
had to do it in way bigger ways than that.
I'm sure, yeah.
And it's all out of love. And I would say, I love you. That's why I'm doing this. You need to learn how to do this so you can
Yeah.
be, I always say that I joke with them that I am your prefrontal cortex and I am teaching you until your brain's developed, you know, I have to teach you how to be safe and healthy with your devices,
Interesting, yeah.
and being on all day isn't safe and healthy
Yeah.
for you, and with Seamus, it was healthy. Like my daughter was using Instagram in a not safe way and I took her phone away and she had an absolute freak out.
Mm.
She couldn't regulate. And I'm like, if you can't self regulate, I'm canceling your phone number. And I had to do that. And she had an triple freak out. And
Yeah,
the first freak out was
yeah.
pretty bad. The triple freak out, now that one's
Oh,
not
man.
for, a weak parent, but
Yikes.
she thanks me to this day for doing that for her.
Wow.
And
Wow,
there
that's
was no
amazing.
thanks back then. She was livid, but she looks back now and she's like, I can see what I couldn't see back then. Cool,
That's
right?
shocking. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've thought about this, but do you have ideas of, like, systemically how to take care of this instead of just, like, on an individual or individual family level?
Yeah, but I don't think it will ever happen, honestly. Like the systemic
Yeah.
way, and I always equate it to the smoking industry, and I've had this actually, my husband and I were having this discussion the other day because I asked him, and I've been asking people lately because this is a great question. And I'll answer that in just a second. But this is what I've been asking people is like, how do you see this playing out? How do you see screen time in general and pornography specifically? Like, how do you see playing out in all the things we've talked about in relationships, in families, in men's health? We know that men's vitality is tanking. Less men get into college, less men graduate, more men live at home because they can't get viable jobs, all having to do with their brains are not functioning the way that they could without pornography, specifically in screen time. So, like, what are the two, to me, like, I'll answer my own question. There's two routes. I can only see two routes. One is people wake up to this and they individually stop. And there will be some legislation, like legislation's already, and it's very difficult for it to get passed, but to be passed to have age restrictions. Same thing with smoking. There's age restrictions were put on. But that's not what stopped people from smoking. People finally understood how addictive it was, that it is causing cancer, even though they were being told it's not that big of a deal. And secondhand smoke was very dangerous for their children and their
Mm.
relationships. Same thing's going to happen with porn. It's going to be that people understand it's addictive. Someday people will be like, that lady's not as crazy and she's not talking hyperbolic. Is that how you say it? Too much hyperbole, like people think. Number two, ED. That's going to be the tipping point, I think.
Right.
I know from working with many young men very personally that we have a
And I wanna
generation
reflect
of
that
young men.
too
Mm-hmm.
with clients that I've been working with
Mm-hmm.
where, they've been talking about erectile dysfunction, and,
Mm-hmm.
it's people have come to me for couples counseling, like, and
Mm-hmm.
it is pretty crazy, and
Yeah.
obviously that's
And
anecdotal, but it's an issue.
yeah, totally. And
Right.
I am, I told you I'm an over functioner. I'm also in the midst of putting together a program for therapists, just an easy one for them to kind of understand the fundamentals in the neuroscience fundamentals of porn addiction and screen addiction, because every therapist needs to ask the question, do you watch pornography? If so, what I ask on my intake, how often, how much? Like that just gives you a quick
Right.
picture. And then also people's screen time habits, like how often you going back to your screens, how much you're using it, because people's brains are affected by this,
Yes.
you know. And then, when it comes to couples therapy, that's the third marker. People's partners are leaving them because of their ED. Men are really grieving like the loss of relationships that they want. They might not share that with other people, but when I talk to people and their hearts are just absolutely broken because they've lost one relationship, they can't keep other relationships. They know it has to do with, all of this. So people stop smoking on their own accord. So
Yeah.
systemically, I don't necessarily think that's the way to go, like for me. Um, and I think the greater way is we have to really let people see what's happening. And then people have to choose to balance their screen time, not passively consume, actively consume. Like I actively consume, I don't passively consume anything. I deliberately go to find a thing and I either enjoy that thing if it's for fun and entertainment, or I learn from that thing and I get motivated. I don't sit in front of whatever's thrown at me and let it, brain rot was the new word in the dictionary. I'm sure you know this. Last year, brain rot was the word that was added. So teaching people to curate their feeds, use it very intentionally, write their goals down. What do you want out of this life? Do not get to the end of the road and have the biggest regrets. Those have been
Yeah.
documented, which the biggest regret for people is they didn't live the life they wanted to. That's literally the biggest regret people have on their deathbed.
Mhm.
They didn't live the life that they wanted to. They
Yeah.
knew what it was in their heart. They felt it. They ignored
Mhm.
it. I do
Yeah.
not want people to ignore that.
That's beautifully said. I mean, another systemic issue that I do want to address is like often when I have clients that are coming to me, complaining about porn use and complaining about scrolling specifically, and this is literally one of the biggest issues that I get, um, is that they work 60-hour plus weeks,
Mhm,
literally
mhm,
60-hour plus weeks, and that's the
mhm,
expectation. And I think like
mhm,
that's the standard in New
mhm,
York City with young, especially young professionals. Like to make it as a young person, you have
mhm,
to make incredible sacrifices in a lot of these
mhm,
fields. Um, is that it's true for therapy, but therapy is a little different. And it's true for lawyers. It's true for all these jobs where it's like you're working crazy, crazy, crazy hours,
mhm.
and it's like they have no choice many times. Well, it's technically not really no choice, but like to just come home, doom scroll, eat a billion
I know.
cookies,
I
and
know.
you
I know.
know watch things to just take the edge off,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yep.
and it's just yeah,
Well, it
uh,
goes back to our conversation on courage,
mhm,
because you're totally right. The world is, a crazy place. It's always been challenging, but it's way more challenging with the standards that we've now. This nonstop lifestyle is so unhealthy. And the way I talk about it
right,
is I tell people, and this is what I'm going to keep saying on the Super Normal YouTube channel, you have to be a top 1% person more now than ever in history. And what that means is you have to be different than the masses. The masses will work 60 hours because that is what is demanded of us right now. I mean, this is the system. You know how you're like,
yeah,
how are we going to systemically change it? Like,
yeah,
can I go to every business and go, stop making your people work 60 hours because this is crazy?
no,
No, the answer is people have to go, It doesn't matter if I make less money and I live in a smaller house." The saying is we're all working so hard to buy
yeah,
things we don't need,
exactly,
to show off to people who actually don't care at all. So like when you get intentional and you're like, none of that matters. What
mhm,
matters is I wake up every day and I feel well. I can spend time with my people. Like, especially like for me
mhm.
with my 5 kids, it's crazy how the last 23 years have flown. And
Wow,
always was intentional, super busy, but I have to put bread on the table too. But at the same time, like really intentional, showed up for every single one of their things. I still do. You know what I mean? Like the balance, like, so that is the problem. So if you work 50, 60 hours a week, you've got to look at that. And if you
yeah,
want to do it for now, I tell people all the time, I have a whole thing that I help people do. Like if you use that to springboard into the next thing that will serve you, not you just serving it, then like we all can do anything for like a year.
Yeah.
You can do
Yeah.
anything, but as long as you have your exit strategy in place too of getting yourself to a better place, you can do that thing and not go over the edge. But just to make one more
Yeah.
comment, like some of my clients, when they come to me, it's an interesting process too, because they don't tell me everything they have going on until we have rapport. And I'll just give an example. Like one client, he came to me for porn addiction, had ED, young guy. So then I can see his brain changing. He's no longer addicted to porn, no longer has ED. Then he tells me he drinks every night. And then he tells me, this is over months, drinks tons of coffee in the morning. Then he tells me he uses nicotine patches to focus at work. He's in New York City, working 70 hours a week. And I'm like, if you're going to work there, like I'm like, you're upregulating all morning and downregulating every evening. Like you will implode. You can't do that forever, So
Yeah.
the really cool thing is he got rid of all of those things and began to balance his schedule and put some healthy boundaries in place with the hours that he was going to work. And, if you're a valued employee, a lot of times you can do that. Sometimes you can't.
Right. Exactly. That's where it gets so tough. It's like, it's easy to say to have the courage, and I don't want to trivialize that because it is true in many cases, but in a lot of cases it's not, and they're forced to kind of do these things for a couple of years. And it's funny, like when you were saying, like, can you like so many of us, it's true. We're like, I'm sure I buy things I don't need, but my kid, I have to spoil her, so it's like, definitely.
Trust me, I have a bunch of spoiled kids. So.
Yeah. But it's funny, like when you're saying we could live in a smaller place. I'm like, how much smaller can these places in New York City get already? So
Yeah.
it's
No,
already crazy.
the point is,
Yeah.
New York City is one of the most expensive places to live.
Right.
So like, if you're killing yourself, then maybe it's time to think
Get
about
out of there.
moving somewhere else. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard the stories too. Most of the stories when people make that, dramatic move, they're much happier. And it doesn't mean they stay in the next place forever. It just allows them to become even keeled again.
Right.
And again, like there's usually a breaking point. There's the point where they're so burnt out they can't think. Like I work with a lot of programmers. I work with executives who run big companies. They know they can barely think. Lawyers, they're at the point where they are melting their brain. And yes, I can go on the record saying that I know it's not scientific, melting their brains with porn every night because they are so stressed out and exhausted. And that trifecta it shows up as, at a certain point, non-functionality. And when people feel that creeping in, the brain fog, they feel the depression, people will get suicidal ideation. That suicidal ideation comes from drain brain. That stuck in neutral. If you're so stuck in neutral and your baseline arousal has tanked so low, you get suicidal thoughts. That comes from, porn use. It's linked scientifically. So like if you're in a place like that, is the job worth that? You know what I mean? Like, is the
Yeah.
apartment in New York City worth that? Like, it can definitely be justified on your way to that, but that's why I want people you have to remain self-aware. Like,
Yeah.
is your life still serving you, what you have going on? And my husband and I've been married 24 years almost. We have downscaled like 5 times. Like we'll be on this. We've got lots of cars because we have lots of kids, a big house. Then we move to a small house. But then we go back up. We've done that like 5 times, but we've right sized for the last decade. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and we end up moving. We moved from New York to North Carolina, where an interesting thing is that, like, at least when we did it, we could get a house double the size for the same amount of money. So, and then we actually got into practices that were more chill with more like-minded people. It was a very intentional move. We knew all of that. We're like, let's get out of this rat race and this kind of down mindset and get to a place where we can have the lifestyle that we want.
That's
And
brilliant. Yeah.
and I call that a staycation. I've been working on having a staycation, especially with so many kids. We've not traveled. It's too difficult to take we've done it a couple times. There's always one or two people who are miserable, which make the other people not that happy. You know how that goes when you
Yeah.
travel with 8 people. So what we try to do is make our home such a wonderful feeling place
Mm,
that being at home, and then like my youngest daughter rides horses, very expensive, but that's part of the staycation. She gets to go do her passion 3 times a week. You know what I mean? My son's a car guy. He's got the car he wants because like I couldn't have that car when I was his age, but I'm supporting him in that cuz that's his passion. Like that's what anchors you into your life that you don't want to escape.
yeah. Having like create your life so that it is truly serving you and is not burning you out and is able to even be a vacation. I love that mindset. And it's like
Mhm.
a beautiful way to think about life design in a way.
Mhm. It is.
So,
Yeah, you
yeah.
create your life so it's a staycation. Like you just
Right.
stay in your life and it feels good. And
It's rejuvenating.
very few people do that, you know.
I
They
think a lot of
are
people might hear that and it's like a
Mhm.
truly foreign concept.
Mhm. And,
It's
you
very
know, it was
unfortunate.
foreign to me until I'm like, I am going to work very intentionally to create this. And it's, you know, it wasn't necessarily super easy, but I feel like I've nailed it.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
I have one funny story. It's a short one where my son's friend actually he's rooming with him at college. They moved to college together, but this was years and years and years ago. His dad came to drop him off for a sleepover, and it was the first time I had met him. And he came in and we're like, "You want to hang out?" And he's like, "Sure." So we hung out for like a long time, and then we go to walk him out, and he left his car on because he didn't plan on coming in. But he has told us that that day, like we're still friendly with him. He said, he said it was one of the most wild experiences because he had never been like in a house that just felt like filled with love and joy and chill and but like not high key but not low key. And it was so cute
Wow.
because he's like, my car went through all of the gas just sitting. He was over for like 5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
So funny, so
So,
funny.
yeah. That's
But
beautiful. That's a beautiful vision and
that's a
an image
funny
that
story.
yeah, it
It was
is.
my dog. It was my dog's birthday when he came, and we always sing "Happy Birthday" to our dog. We put him in a chair. He's 13 now. We put him in a chair. It was probably like his third birthday because it was definitely like 10 years ago. We always put him in a chair. I make him a cake. Everybody sings to him. Like so, this guy Pete's like, I'm at a dog's birthday party. You know what I mean? But like in my whole family,
Yeah.
like, but it was just relaxed. It was really fun. It's a funny
That's
story
awesome.
between us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Yeah, Dr. Trish, though, I'm wondering if you have a few maybe bullet point pieces of advice for anybody that's ready or willing to start this journey of detoxing from pornography and
Hmm.
masturbation.
Yep. And in my program, I run a monthly group meeting and it's great. I love doing it. I had it today. So this is where the point of it. And one of the questions was, why isn't it just enough to just stop? And I think that might be a good starting point to answer that is recognizing that there is neurological dysfunction, brain dysfunction, just call it what it is, brain dysfunction at the core. So when you go to stop cold turkey, if you can't succeed, like you are dealing with brain dysfunction, not a habit. The reason you feel withdrawal is because your brain needs dopamine and you're not giving it to it. And until your brain recalibrates, it'll be challenging. Brains don't always recalibrate by themselves. That's the role that neurofeedback plays. And the way I talk about it is you need tools to unwire your brain from porn, but you also need tools to rewire your brain to the optimal pattern and hardwire that in. So, long story short, like when you start, cold turkey isn't enough usually. On the YouTube channel that I have, there's almost 2,000 videos that have brain hack strategies. Like go start watching them. You'll get the sense of what's necessary, but this is what's necessary. Regulate your brain and then do all the behavioral things that include this. No longer going to any supernormal stimuli. We already covered that. Like you can't, if you go back once, your brain's going to want it again. You have to digitally detox from pornography and explicit matter. What that includes is OnlyFans, porn proper, any social media that's hypersexualized. If you're going to long form content, ask yourself, why am I here?
Mm,
Why am I watching this yoga video? Don't tell yourself you
yeah.
want to know these yoga moves. Be very, very clear with yourself the why. Long form, short form, whatever you're watching, don't go there. You're hooking your brain to it for dopamine. You will have
Yeah.
to go back. Motivation for more pleasure. And then dopamine stack in your real life. All the things that I was talking about, the things that I do and the things that I'm encouraging my family to do. Like, why do I drive my daughter to the barn 3 times a week? Because I want her brain linked to horses for dopamine because
Yeah.
she loves them, not her phone, right? So if she's spending all of her time getting that dopamine, she doesn't need to get it from her phone. Same thing for you. You love chess? Play chess. I love to
How can
box.
I love chess?
I'm terrible at chess, by the way. I'm the only one in my family who doesn't know how to play chess. And my husband's been trying to teach me. And I'm like, bro, my bandwidth for chess, like at the end of the night, I think so much. I'm a thinker. So the things that I do are embodiment. I'm thinking all day. I box. I love to box. It's super fun. I work out, do the things you love, schedule them in, make that staycation lifestyle. That's what
Yeah.
my staycation lifestyle involves. It involves like the easy things are I have a morning routine every morning in North Carolina, thankfully. Mostly it's gorgeous out every morning. I sit on my back porch. I chill. I listen to the breeze in the trees. We live in the middle of a forest. It's amazing. Every day anchored in nature. Every evening I hang out with my family. I work out every day. I go for walks every day. I do the work I love every day. That's a
Yeah.
staycation right there.
Yeah. It's
Dopamine
brilliant.
stack from your life.
Yeah.
And if you're not succeeding, it's not that you can't, it's that you don't have the right tools or all the tools you need and you don't have the right support.
Right.
And you have
Okay.
to invest your time, money, and energy into getting the tools and the support. And those are the
Yeah.
programs that you and I offer. You get with your therapist, you get into my program, So I tell people that's what I said to the guys in the meeting today. I'm like, you're not succeeding here. You need more
Mhm.
help. I know you probably don't want to spend any more money on this, but trust me, the return on investment is huge. It's
Yeah.
huge. You get your brain
Yeah.
straight, you make more money. That's just the reality.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
Hmm.
You're reminding me a little bit when I was on my own journey. One of the things that I realized is that your brain, your mind is so much smarter in a way than you are, in the sense that like you could trick yourself so easily, like thinking like, oh, I'm watching this yoga video. Like, you could truly lie to yourself and trick yourself, and it's fascinating how powerful it is. And I honestly think I mentioned this earlier, and we didn't really get into it about why I was conflicted about
Hmm.
my
Yeah,
my
tell me.
thoughts
Yeah.
on this these days. Yeah, we could get into it if you want.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, what fascinates me though about the journey that I took is truly all the things that I learned about myself in the process, and like how to
Hmm.
actually deal and manage life.
Hmm.
It's such a game changer. I think also I think also this is a fascinating thing, maybe an unintended consequence. But I think, for me personally, it was something that I had thought of as it would be impossible to stop. Like it would be something that like, because like in the past, like, I've maybe tried before and wasn't really
Hmm.
successful or whatever. And in my mind, it was like, this is so difficult. This is a barrier I
Hmm.
cannot cross. It's
Hmm.
impossible, right? It's
Hmm.
like, it truly will go against nature. And
Hmm.
to be able to do it and to like be so radically honest and to
Hmm.
like truly like think things through and calm myself and regulate, like all these skills that I learned throughout the way of this process
Hmm.
is extremely, extremely valuable. I think a lot of
Hmm.
people, when it comes to this nofap idea, or some of these communities, they maybe have
Hmm.
like supernatural beliefs about what it might do for you, like doing semen retention
Mhm,
somehow this
mhm,
stores
mhm,
energy. I don't know anything about that stuff, if there's any
mm,
validity to it or not. Like
mhm,
I wouldn't say anything metaphysical, but I think just like psychologically speaking, for
mhm,
you to be able to like master yourself, there's actually
mhm.
a good ancient Jewish phrase. I think it's like a true warrior is the one who could conquer himself. I don't know if you're familiar with
Mhm.
that.
Yeah,
It's
I
like a
am.
proverb.
Yeah. Mhm, mhm,
Yeah. And it's
mhm.
so true. It's like it truly I'm sorry, not a warrior, a champion is
Yeah.
somebody that could really conquer themselves.
Mhm.
So it was
There is a warrior saying too
I'm sure
that
there is,
goes to
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Right, right. I'm sure it's probably similar.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, and I think now I don't know, I kind of lost my train of thought.
Mhm. No,
But
I
yeah,
know what you're saying. So if I can
right.
comment, to
Sure.
pick up your thought is that like from a metaphysical standpoint, like, your point was the greatest challenge is to, and in my book, in Mind Over Explicit Matter, I talk about this. Like when you have compulsions or you have to go to something outside of yourself to regulate yourself, I think of that as the little s self. Like that's not the highest version of yourself. That's the version of yourself that's like in the world doing all the worldly things because your brain's been trained that way.
Yeah.
But when you become a champion who can transcend the need for these worldly pleasures like out of your control, that is the greatest, quest that you can climb, the greatest mountain by mastering, any urges you have and being able to move through the world in the way that you decide. That's what I
Right.
consider the capital S self. And
Yes.
I do think what that does is it leads you to the highest level version of yourself. You can, like, you cut through the noise. An overstimulated world, porn, you know, phones, it's noise. So if
Yeah.
you are constantly filling your brain and your mind with noise, how can you possibly hear what you really want? This is why people lose touch of their purpose and their passion. This is why they forget to reconnect with themselves and their people. There's so much noise.
Yeah.
That's what my point about the passive consumption too. It's like you just take in what's thrown at you. That's not having discernment. When you quiet that noise,
Mm.
you will be completely shocked at the voice that you hear in your head. It's not the one of self-doubt. It's not the one who talks to you negatively. It's not the one that needs another hit of whatever dopamine source. I believe that's like the divinely inspired version of yourself. And I've been
Yeah.
on that journey, which makes me different. I'm the black sheep of my family, or maybe the white sheep of my family.
Sure.
I've been on that journey for over 35 years, where I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to quiet this noise and figure
Yeah.
out who I am. And when I hear things, I'm going to follow them. And if they lead me into a challenging place, I'm going to get out of it.
It's
Mhm.
brilliant. I love that you have the courage to really go after those things that you feel called towards.
Well,
And,
thankfully, it is paying off because my 5 kids
yeah.
didn't always enjoy They're like, "Seriously? You're doing that?" I'm like, "Yes, children, seriously."
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
And now they think it's cool.
That's pretty funny. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think though, like from a self improvement angle, there is a lot of merit to the idea. But I think at the same time, the reason why I was saying that I'm hesitant earlier is because I think that a lot of people maybe approach it in from an unhealthy place, and it becomes this thing that they try to cut out of their life because of the shame, and then that really does spiral. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I try to teach people you're not running from something. You're growing towards something.
Yeah.
That's totally different. And I was just
Yeah.
talking about that in the meeting today because when you regulate your brain, going back to the like, why can't you just stop and that's enough? And the answer
Yep.
to that is like, if you just try to stop and go cold turkey, what happens is your brain still needs dopamine. So
Yeah.
now you're fighting against yourself, that internal conflict that, you're fighting against yourself. But when you regulate your brain, and one of my clients put it this way, I think it's really cool. Like at first, he had urges to watch porn and he was trying not to. But then as his brain became healthier, he had the thought, which is a habit loop, which is part of this also. There's dopamine dependency, then there's a habit loop. He had the thought, like, I should watch porn because that's when he would normally watch porn. But he's like, I don't even want to, but I feel like I should. So now it's like, it's not, I don't, I'm trying not to. Now it's kind of like, it feels weird not to. And then ultimately, as your brain regulates, you just forget about it. You don't even, there's no need. You don't feel that
Yeah.
need anymore
Yeah.
because you have replaced it with healthy dopamine sources. You've
Yeah.
learned to regulate your mood. You feel mad, you get mad. And then you talk to the person who made you mad and you sort it out.
Right.
And I tell people all the time that happened a week ago where someone I know, a thing happened. They were so upset. I'm like, go talk to that person. And they're like, I can't. I'm like, from now until the end of time, the time to talk to a person is when the conflict happens, not when a
Right.
good time arises. That's not a thing. When you feel upset about a thing, once you get yourself regulated, once you're calmed down and you know what you want to say to that person, that's emotional intelligence. So, like, that is how you become like it's totally possible. And you no longer are trying not to. You're just living
Yeah.
your life without the need for it.
Exactly. That's how you become super normal.
That's how you become super normal. That's top 1%
Yeah.
living. Like, I really believe that. You're totally tapped in too.
Wow. Dr. Trish, this has been truly inspiring. Really, I love the things that you're saying. Some of the things that you reminded me of for some reason is, I think about sometimes there's like a debate, like, is free will, does it truly exist or not? And I think like you go on a journey like this, there's no question. You know what I mean? Like there is no question. You have power, like you're capable. of doing really, really, really incredible things. So I want to thank you for sharing. Hey fam, unfortunately at this point the last 10 minutes of this podcast was cut out. Very, very sad and devastating. I saw that this had happened to a future video as well, a very fascinating podcast that I did with Dr. Angela Puka, who studies magic and esotericism. But anyways, this has been a phenomenal episode with Dr. Trish Leigh. Definitely check out her content in the description. You can check out her website if you're interested in her neural feedback map programming. And if you're struggling with this, it's very understandable. You can definitely get help. Dr. Trish Leigh seems really phenomenal and easy to work with. So definitely check her out. Send her some love. She has her own YouTube channel as well, where she makes content and a podcast. So yeah, definitely leave your comments in the description. I'm very curious to hear from you, and I will see you in the next one. Dr. Trish, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.